In Wall to Wall tonight, a closer look at why people are so worried about the potential impact of this giant spill on a remarkable area that sustains so many species of vulnerable wildlife. Let's take a look at the magic wall. We'll show you a map showing the scope of the spill and the threat it poses to so many species. There are tuna, large, those blue dots, all those blue dots, that is the tuna population, especially at risk right now because bluefin tuna are now in their spawning season. It is a critical area of concern right down there. Brown pelicans and other seabirds often dive into the oil because the slick can make the water look calmer. If they're coated in oil, of course, often hard to breathe, also raises their temperature, leading to hypothermia. All 4 species of sea turtles in the Gulf are already threatened or endangered. You see the dots there along the shoreline representing their habitats. Some have already washed up ashore, and with their numbers already low, it would be so hard to rebuild that population. Red snapper population, heron, egrets, so many species at risk in that map you see right there. Now let's head across the room to take a look at the toll we know so far, and especially at what the government is trying to do about it. We know the response so far on the water. It's thousands of boats, but there are 35 national wildlife refuges at risk in the Gulf area. 361 U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service employees involved so far, and survey teams all across the Gulf. What do we know so far about the toll? 442 birds have been collected alive, and they're attempting to rescue and clean them. 633 dead. Sea turtles collected, the number now 50 alive, 272 dead. Mammals, 2 alive, 36 dead. We need to be clear, the government says it can't certify all those deaths are directly attributed to the oil spill until the tests are back, but most in the environmental community believe there is no doubt. When we come back from a break, the spill's impact on the diverse wildlife of the Gulf region. Animal expert extraordinaire Jack Hanna joins us to help.
Prettier than that animal right there, the manatee. And let's just hope and pray that they don't start making their way into the Gulf. Let's just pray that the wind shift or the current shift or something, because we just can't have anything more happen to the manatee.
To go one-on-one.
We're back in Montague, Louisiana. I want to show you the canal behind me. It is the Bayou Terrebonne Canal. It is critical to the shrimp boats that head out into the Gulf of Mexico. In that Gulf, as we just showed you, so many species that are at risk because of this massive and continuing oil spill. To get a better sense of what is the scope of this threat, earlier this afternoon I went one-on-one with Jack Hanna. He's the Columbus Zoo's Director Emeritus and the host of Jack Hanna's Into the Wild. When we spoke, he was at the zoo's aquarium and its Manatee Coast. Jack, people say this is the worst environmental disaster in U.S. history from an animal protection, an animal rescue, a survival standpoint. What do you see as the big challenges? Obviously, I'm in Louisiana, and you have some species off the coast here. You have fish, you have the birds on the shore, then you stretch all the way Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. What is the scope of the challenge here?
Well, the challenge, obviously, John, is tremendous right now. If this had happened, as I've said, I think, once before, December, January, February, or March, we wouldn't probably have a third of the problem. But because, as you just said, that happens to be a migratory pattern for birds up through there. Turtles nest there. Pelicans have their eggs there. And by the way, pelicans, a state bird of Louisiana, is not going to go anywhere with eggs. It's like a human being with a baby sitting there. They're not going to leave that baby if somebody tells them to get out. They're going to try and take the babies with them. Obviously, they can't pick up an egg and go anywhere with it. Fish are spawning. The plankton, obviously, is affected for not just now, but for who knows how long. The manatee have been in the worst situation. And I'm not quite sure. I look behind me here, but we have manatees, 6 or 7 manatee in this tank here. Columbus Zoo is one of 7 places in the world where we rehabilitate manatee. And right now the manatee had the worst winter in history, losing over probably around 600 manatee right now in Florida. Now they're going to come up the coast into the panhandle there. And of course that could be a big disaster. So with all this put together, timing couldn't have been worse.
And let's talk about the immediate challenges, those animals, the species that come in contact with the oil. There are some scientists who say the survival rate among the birds who get treated heavily with oil is so low that it's not even worth cleaning them up. Jump in and address that, but also just talk about if an animal comes in direct contact, what is that challenge?
Well, you're right. Birds is difficult. The birds prune and preen themselves. You're down there right now. I'm not there. So you're seeing this, how the birds are preening themselves, ingesting the oil, affects the liver, affects the lungs, affects the kidneys. What about the dolphin? People often ask me, aren't dolphins smart? Do they know what to do? The dolphin are smart, but what about the fish that eat the other fish that go out there that ingest the oil, the fish do, and then the dolphin eats the fish? And so it's this vicious cycle is what I think, to answer your question. It's a vicious cycle over a period of time that's going to cost a lot of animals probably their lives. To some animals, this looks like food. These little bubbles of oil looks like food. If you know anything about sea turtles, they go after plastic bags looking like a jellyfish. So these animals might think, a lot of them, even some fishes, might think this is some sort of food and just be ingesting it. Before you know it, the kidneys go. Sometimes it's a quick death. Sometimes it's not that way whatsoever. Especially when it comes to certain types of ingestion by birds and that type of thing, especially birds that can't get away because the oil weights them down. They can't get away from predators, and that could apply to many different types of animals as far as predator-prey relationship, especially in the ocean.
And how is the challenge different if you're trying to figure out how to deal with and how to help, say, the offshore population, the red snapper, the tuna, the significant fish populations? How is that challenge different from onshore, where you see the pelicans here in Louisiana, or as you move east toward Florida, or maybe it's the flamingos onshore? How is the challenge different onshore to offshore?
Well, the challenge is different. Obviously, with the pelicans, we almost, lost them with DDT years ago. Now we got them back. We almost lost all the pelicans. Now they're back, and now, of course, now we're faced with this challenge of the oil spill. As far as the challenge out in the oceans, I do a lot of diving around the world, all over the world. And, as I go down there to, I don't usually go over 100 feet down, but if you go down there, you see the different creatures of the world, which are phenomenal. And I couldn't begin to tell you, John, how this can affect them. I mean, I wish I could, but I don't think anyone can other than, people who really dedicate their lives to the underwater world. At least on land, we can, stop it maybe with some of these booms. We can stop it by way of putting straw down. We can watch the birds, but you just can't go out in the ocean and watch a dolphin or a sea turtle swimming around out there. The stress on the animal, by the way, can be just as deadly as the oil. And so that's a big difference in the open sea. Even on land, people keep calling me, want to know how they can help. Right now, they've got, 22,000 people helping on one end of it, another 2,000, 3,000 with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Refuge System, the aquariums that are the Audubon Zoo and Aquarium down there. So people need to understand something. I have two people leaving here, Ohio right now, going down there. They don't know what they're going to do, but they want to help. And that's great to say that, but they can do more serious injury than helping. So you need to have an organization that knows you're coming to teach you how to save these animals.
Is there a problem on that in the organization, the infrastructure? And we've watched the government try to respond just to the spill, and there have been some fits and starts and frustrations and setbacks in that regard. What about in saving this precious, sensitive wildlife at risk? Is it the government's role, and is the government doing its job, or is it the volunteer community's role? And can you build an infrastructure, I guess a first responder group, that can get in quick enough and do the job right and do good, not harm, as you're worried about?
BP made a mistake. We all know that. And thanks to the way you present the news, you all do, as well as some other stations, at least you're trying to help. We all know what the problem is. We can start pointing the finger, John, with BP or the federal government after this whole thing's over with. Right now, let's all get our energies going to help the wildlife and the people there. Now, as far as somebody organizing all this, the Audubon Zoo, the Audubon Institute, the Audubon Aquarium, this is in the federal government with the Department of Interior and National Wildlife Refuge Service. These guys are all getting together and putting together the plan right now. I'm just asking people to quit throwing the blame around. I'm tired of hearing about it. And let's all work together to take care of the animals and the people's lives, and then you all can do what you want to with whoever's responsible.
Our thanks to Jack Hanna. And this footnote, the Coast Guard officer I was with today said helicopters go out over the Gulf and they will not spray those chemical dispersants. They will not spray them, he says, if there are any sightings of dolphins or whales in the vicinity. Still much more to come tonight as we go to break.